When you've lived long enough, you start to notice the small things other people ignore. The kind of things that seem harmless at first, until one day, they aren't. That's how it was with the power lines behind our little cul-de-sac in Sunridge Estates, a quiet 55-plus community outside of Phoenix. I'd lived there for 12 years, long enough to see a few HOA presidents come, go, and even longer to know that when something looks wrong with electrical wiring, it usually is wrong. It started one summer evening when I was walking my dog, Daisy. The sun was low, and the air shimmered with heat. I noticed the lines running behind our row of houses were sagging lower than usual. You could hear a faint buzzing sound, and one of the transformers looked discolored, black around the edges like it had been singed. I took a few photos and sent them to the HOA's maintenance email, explaining that the lines seemed overloaded and that they should contact the utility company. I wasn't alarmist, just practical. But the next morning I got a reply from the HOA president, a man named Greg who moved in 2 years ago and thought he knew everything because he once managed a car dealership. He wrote, "Thanks for your concern, but everything's fine. The system's been inspected, no need to worry." That was that, or so I thought. A few weeks later, during our monthly HOA meeting, I brought it up again. I explained that with the summer heat, people were running more air conditioners, and the lines were carrying heavier loads. "If they're not reinforced," I said, "we could have a fire." Greg chuckled and said, "Jim, I think you've been watching too many disaster movies." The room joined in a polite laugh, and the meeting moved on to topics like pool maintenance and who was leaving their trash bins out too long. I remember sitting there thinking, they'll regret laughing. By mid-July, the temperature hit 112 degrees. Everyone's AC units were running full blast all day and night. You could practically hear the hum of electricity in the air. That's when I started smelling something. Burnt insulation. That sharp plastic odor that makes your stomach turn. The next evening, around 9 p.m., Daisy woke me up barking like crazy. I looked out the window and saw a flash of orange near the back fence. Flames were licking up the wooden poles and sparks were falling like fireflies. I ran outside and shouted for my neighbors. Someone called 911. Within minutes, the fire spread along the dry brush behind 3 homes. People were running out in their robes, spraying garden hoses, trying to help. The fire department arrived fast, but the flames had already jumped to a storage shed and a fence. We were lucky. No one got hurt. But 2 sheds and part of a patio went up in smoke before the firefighters got it under control. The next morning, the neighborhood looked like a scene from a war movie. Blackened poles, melted siding, and ash where the grass used to be. The power company showed up to replace the lines and confirmed what I already knew. The wires had been overloaded. Too many homes drawing current from an outdated system. And guess who came knocking on my door that afternoon? Greg. He looked about 10 years older than the day before. "Jim," he said quietly, "you were right. The inspector said we should have replaced the lines months ago." I didn't say much. I just nodded and handed him a copy of the email I'd sent weeks earlier. Since then, the HOA has made electrical safety its new top priority. We've got new transformers, updated breakers, and even a safety committee. Greg asked me to join it. I said yes, but only if we actually do something this time, not just talk about it over donuts and coffee. Sometimes I think about how quickly people dismiss experience. When you get older, folks assume you're just worried or set in your ways. But the truth is, most of us have seen enough to know when something's headed for trouble. Now, when I walk Daisy past those new power lines, I feel a little satisfaction. Not because I wanted to be right, but because being right this time meant people learned to listen before it was too late. So if you're rereading this, and you've got that nagging feeling that something is wrong, don't let anyone laugh you off. Trust your gut, speak up. You might just save a few homes or even a few lives, and hey, if you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more true stories from real folks who've lived enough life to have something worth saying. Your support keeps these stories going, and who knows, the next one might just sound a lot like your own.